Your Royal Highness, Your Royal Highnesses, I should say, Prime Minister Dato Sharon, my old friend, ladies and gentlemen, very, very distinguished guests. It is a huge honor that you've done me in inviting me to come here tonight. And on behalf of all the politicians and city planners of London, I've really come to offer a surrender to the city fathers of Kuala Lumpur. We're figuratively waving the white flag, folks, because as some of you may know, we've seen in London recently the creation of some truly colossal buildings. The Shard has gone up, erupting through the surface of the earth like some gigantic cocktail stick, coming up through the surface of a super colossal pickled onion. A building, of course, constructed with the help of Islamic finance, and so tall that you can allegedly see France from the top of it. But this morning I went for my morning run at about the speed of an 85-year-old through Kuala Lumpur, and I came beneath the shadow of the Petronas towers, and my neck cricked back and back and back, and I've looked it up, and these things are fully 100 meters taller than the Shard, and my sense of inadequacy has been completed when I talked to the Dato Bandar of Kuala Lumpur, and he showed me his plan for a building of 682 meters that I think you're going to put up, and that is 2.5 times the Shard, folks. And as soon as I saw that, I knew that the game was up. We couldn't hack it in London. We can't go up to 682 meters. There's absolutely no way we can do it. Not even my Deputy Mayor Chief of Staff, Sir Eddie Lister, who loves tall buildings, would try and get that one past. So, Prime Minister Najib, you will win the race for the skies. We surrender. We surrender. But you should not underestimate the growth that is taking place in our city. Here in Malaysia, you have an economy expanding at, I think, 6.1% a year, the fastest growing economy in ASEAN. But we now, in spite of the downturn, we have an economy growing in the UK faster than any other country in Europe. We have in London, thank you for that ripple of applause. We have in London the most productive and dynamic region in the entire EU, beating North Rhine-Westphalia, the whole lot of them. And of course, rather than thinking competitively, you know, who's got the biggest skyscraper, I see so many ways since I've been here in which each city can harness the ambition and the drive of the other to mutual benefit. We in London need hundreds of thousands of new homes, and we need to develop brownfield sites across the city. And now, thanks to Malaysia, thanks to SB Setcher and Simon Darby and EPF and the great work done by the Prime Minister and indeed Tan Sri Liu, who is here, and many others, after 40 years of decay, we are turning that mouldering old hulk of a power station at Battersea that was fit for nothing but the final shootout in the most depressing British gangster films you've ever seen, or the cover of a Pink Floyd album, into a powerhouse of growth with hotels, restaurants, tens of thousands of homes in that whole Vauxhall, Battersea, Nine Elms area that would not have existed if we had not had investment from Malaysia. And on this trip, we've discussed plenty more ideas. Thank you. It's the most wonderful thing, and I want to pay a tribute to everybody in the government of Malaysia who's helped. And we've discussed plenty more ideas for projects that could help us to create the homes, even more homes, for the people in our city, because we are dealing in London with the consequences of success. We are not only the most visited city in the world, we are the #1 city for tourists, 16.9 million people last year, pushing New York, pushing Paris off the top spot. We also have a rapidly growing population. Since I've been Mayor of London, people, both men and women, are living roughly 18 months longer than when I was elected 6 years ago. You live longer under the Conservative folks in London. And last year, we had more live births in our city, 136,000 or something, than in any year since England won the World Cup in 1966. Such was the general enthusiasm for reproduction of the people of our city after the Olympics. And so you've got people living longer, you've got more live births, and we're also seeing London act as a magnet for talent for people around the world. And I'm now mayor of the 6th biggest Italian city in the world, the 12th biggest the 12th biggest Russian city, I think the 13th biggest Australian city, and I am mayor of the 4th biggest French city on earth, mes amis. Isn't that fantastic? The 4th biggest French city, because in the last few years, about 400,000 French ressortissants have fled the Hollande tyranny. We've now got more French people living in London than they have in Bordeaux, in Nantes, more than they have in Strasbourg. We've got in London now, and if it goes on like this, we have to worry about a German invasion, frankly. And our population is set to continue to grow. 9 million by 2020, perhaps 10 million by 2030. 11 million by the middle of the century, and there's all sorts of reasons why the city is successful. And someone asked me this afternoon at the Khazanah conference on cities. He said, "Why is London so successful?" He looked at me with a beady eye and said, "Is it actually really anything to do with you?" I'm going to claim credit for it, obviously, because if it wasn't successful, people would blame me. I think it is a fantastic place to live at the moment, a wonderful place to live, and I'm delighted by the previous speaker who said that so many of the people in this room might be council taxpayers. I just want to remind you that we've cut your council tax by 24% since I was elected, and we have governed so effectively that I would say that crime is down very substantially. The murder rate has been more or less cut in half, 50% down. Bus crime is down 40%. Bus crime is down 40 or 45%. Obviously, that's not crime committed by buses, which is very rare indeed now in London, but crime committed on buses. We have the safest metros, the safest tube system anywhere in Europe. And I think people quite possibly recognize some of the other improvements that we have seen. We are making colossal investments, as indeed you are here in Kuala Lumpur. We are making colossal investments in transport infrastructure, Crossrail, the biggest engineering project anywhere in Europe, if not the world, putting air conditioning on the tube. It may sound very basic to you, but believe me, we've got a 150-year-old system, and it's been extremely difficult to make air conditioning work, but we've cracked it, even on the deep tube lines. We're extending the tube for the first time in 25 years, and we're doing all sorts of things to improve the quality of life for people in our city, and the quality of life for everybody in our city. And that is, I think, in the end, what is going to distinguish the successful cities of the future. What's it like for everyone, the people in the lowest income groups? What's it like to live there? What's it like to smell the air? Do you get the chance to see your kids in the evening? And so we've been working on these quality of life issues, and we're encouraging all sorts of environmentally friendly ways of getting around, walking, cycling. We've got a huge strategy to clean up the air, a wonderful new clean green bus, the cleanest in Europe, with the hop-on, hop-off, fall-over open platform that was so wrongly taken away by the health and safety fanatics. That's now back on the streets, as the video earlier on showed. We are encouraging low-carbon vehicles of all kinds, planting tens of thousands of trees. We have as I say, not just a communist-style cycle hire scheme. We are putting in many cycle lanes, not all of which are popular with motorists. And, of course, we need to go further. In the next few years, as London grows, we are going to have to ensure that people are able to live near their place of work. And we are going to have to put in the transport links that will enable those new homes to be built. So we're going ahead with Crossrail 2, a gigantic new crossrail going from the southwest to the northeast. We're extending the Bakerloo line. We're building 3 bridges east of Tower Bridge and a new tunnel as well. And of course, we need to think about the lives of our people. What do they need in addition to low crime and better transport and hundreds of thousands more homes? What else do they need? We need to make sure they have the skills, that they have the education. We need to make sure they have the confidence that goes with being in a place of work, particularly young people, because we still have 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, employment, or training. The rates are low, we haven't seen for many years, but we still have a problem. And that is why we need jobs. We need jobs for those people to do. It's not just a question of creating communities and neighborhoods, it's about getting those people into jobs. And that's why I'm here today. We are ceaselessly looking for markets for British goods. And I have to say that in the last 48 hours, it's become clear to me that there are absolutely amazing opportunities for our firms here in Malaysia. We've just seen Nottingham University, incredible export effort. Yesterday I opened a school. Epsom College has got a new outlet, a new campus here in 45 minutes away from where we are now. And it was very moving to open a British school here in Malaysia. And you can see British firms doing well in insurance, in supermarkets, in aerospace, in pharmaceuticals, you name it. As Prime Minister Najib said yesterday, and I think I'm quoting you correctly, Prime Minister, you said, this is an unparalleled moment for trade and cooperation between our 2 countries, or something like that. I may have got that down slightly wrong, but that was the gist of what you said. I don't think the Prime Minister is going to deny it. And I believe it to be true, by the way. I think after a long period of what I think you once called benign neglect, I think we are going through a fantastic time now between Britain and Malaysia. And if we are to exploit that moment to the full, then I just think we need to get some things right. And I think it's vital that we stay open to each other, and indeed that we increase our mutual openness. And to explain what I mean by openness, I think we should never forget the lesson of rubber. I mean, the substance, and how the trees that produce rubber were originally discovered in Brazil, as you will recall, and they were runty and sickly, and they were prone to disease. And then a Brit took some of those seeds from Brazil, apparently without asking permission. The Brazilians are still raw about it, I'm told. And then he brought them to Kew Gardens in London, where they germinated in a hothouse. And then from Kew, these seedlings, 22 of them, were taken to the botanical gardens in Singapore, where they were coddled and nurtured until they were pretty robust. And then a botanist called H.N. Ridley, or Mad Ridley, as he was known, took those seedlings and he showed them to the planters of Malaysia. And he said that that was a much more promising crop, rubber, than the coffee that they were trying to grow. I think I'm getting this roughly right. And that was the beginning of Malaysia's rise to global rubber supremacy, wasn't it? Now the #1 maker of washing up gloves and many other useful domestic items, and as you know. And of course, this is the point. It wasn't just the seed that crossed the frontiers, was it? Between Brazil and Britain and Singapore and Malaysia. It was the idea. Cutting the bark in a herringbone fashion to let the latex out without killing the tree. Am I not right? And that idea, Ridley's I think it was transplanted or transported in the cranium of a human being, and the perfect place for the germination of that idea wasn't Brazil because of the phytosanitary problems that I've just mentioned, and it wasn't London because it was too cold, obviously, and it wasn't even in Singapore because Singapore wasn't big enough for what they needed to do, was it? No, not at all. And so the perfect place was Malaysia. And in the 21st century, we need to recognize that ideas, including great business ideas, must be able to cross frontiers. And the more cross-fertilization and cross-pollination and cross-propagation, there's probably some other word that means the same thing that I could add at this point, but I think you're getting the message. The more we have of that, the better. And I think that we can do even better than we are doing now, though things have massively improved. And I think we, on our side, on the British side, could do some very simple things. I think it's totally crazy that our visa regime seems to involve some of the wonderful business people of Malaysia having to send their passports off to the Philippines for a fortnight's holiday before they're able to get a visa to go to London. We need to sort out our aviation, our air links with Malaysia so that there are more direct flights between London and Kuala Lumpur. I don't know if you agree with that. I certainly think it's about time we did that. I was delighted to hear Tony Fernandez announce that he's going to be putting on direct flights to Gatwick next year. Isn't that superb? Well done, Tony. I'm a great fan of AirAsia, by the way, having experienced, I think it was yesterday, their excellent service and chicken sandwiches, which I want you to know I paid for myself, because I'm mindful of your council tax, people of Kuala Lumpur. And I was very pleased to hear from the High Commissioner that High Commissioner Vicky that BA is going to be running direct flights from next year as well. Though frankly, the only long-term answer is to give our country, I mean the UK, the southeast of England, the kind of 24-hour, 4-runway hub airport east of the city, preferably in the estuary, that is being built across the whole of Southeast Asia. And I'm very envious of what is happening in this part of the world. And as for what could be perhaps done on the Malaysian side, I respectfully suggest that more could be done to allow service companies to establish themselves directly in this city and in this country, so that, for instance, lawyers and accountants and consultants and banks and chartered surveyors and architects and what have you could establish themselves here directly without needing a local partner. And the reason I say that is that's exactly what we've done in London, have done for many years, so that you have American law firms and German banks and French consultants and what have you. And the result is not that they squeeze out local talent. They stimulate it, and they employ tens of thousands, if not actually hundreds of thousands, of local people. And in London, at any rate, this presence of international services companies creates that ferment, that hub of competitive industries that makes up our modern city. And I humbly suggest that you might want to consider it. And I think if we work at it, and if we work at the kind of things that we are working on, there is absolutely no limit to the flow of trade and ideas and investment between our two countries. And I'm absolutely thrilled that there will soon be a Malaysia Square in Battersea. Absolutely thrilled. An extraordinary new space in our city modelled on the Mulu caves of Sarawak. I don't know what goes on in the Mulu caves of Sarawak, but it's good. It will be pretty intense, the Battersea version anyway, and people will have a wonderful, and it will be an icon. It will be an absolutely wonderful place, with or without orangutans and the other attractions that there may be. And it's fantastic, obviously, to see Malaysian investment going into everything from cement companies in Britain to motor manufacturing, Lotus cars and so on. And obviously it is true that London has many more and many better Malaysian restaurants than any other European city. I don't think you would deny that. And I'm also proud, symmetrically, that British companies are exporting ever-growing numbers of Jaguars and Land Rovers, and a phenomenal number of second-hand BMWs and Mercs, by the way, in the great British tradition of Arthur Daley, and every manner, every type of luxury goods, including, I was absolutely thrilled to see, aqua scutum waterproof raincoats. And of course, aqua scutum waterproof raincoats have the benefit of insulation provided by what? Have you been following this speech? What's the key thing that stops them getting wet when they put on an aqua scutum waterproof raincoat? Rubber. Rubber from Malaysia, grown from seeds that came originally from Brazil, nicked by Britain, sent back to Britain as rubber, and then re-exported to Malaysia as a fashion item. And it is fantastic to see. It is fantastic to see shops in Kuala Lumpur that actually stock 42 of them that stock biscuits made in London. Biscuits, all the way from the London borough of Brent, where, as you know, every chocolate hobnob in the world is made. And yet what has really taken me by surprise and moved me in the last couple of days has been the friendliness and the warmth that has been shown to my team, all the business people I brought with me, and towards the London delegation. And thank you very, very much indeed. And I see a real enthusiasm that I had never expected for London and for what I might call the London brand. Indeed, I was browsing in a local supermarket. When I came across this packet of mouth-watering green cupcakes decorated with a dainty scene of English afternoon tea. And why have they got a scene of English afternoon tea on it? Because can you see it? Can you read what the brand is? This is a London cupcake. And they have other varieties which have double-decker buses and taxis and all sorts of. This is a London cupcake. This is what it says on the packet. It is a green tea flavour London cupcake of a kind that has never been seen or indeed tasted in London. And I hope my ambition is that trade between us will so intensify that soon the people of London too will be able to enjoy these cupcakes as much as the people of Kuala Lumpur. And that there will be as many Malaysian-made London cupcakes in London as there are London-made hobnobs in Malaysia. And Your Royal Highness, Prime Minister, I would like you both to accept. I've taken the precaution of getting two packets. I would like you both to accept these cupcakes as a parting present from the British delegation and a symbol of what I hope will be the intensifying partnership between our two countries. I think you both of you already got my book, so this is for you. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for listening. Here's to London and Kuala Lumpur, and here's to Britain and Malaysia. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.